So Bama moving forward has Georgia.
Yup.
They then comparatively, you got 2 weeks against lesser teams. You got Vanderbilt and you got South Carolina. Now, South Carolina's defensive line is no joke. I think South Carolina has legitimately a top end defensive line in the sport. I don't know. I couldn't tell you if it's the 5th best defensive line or 6th best defensive line, but it's up there. And then you get into the gauntlet. You got Tennessee, you got Missouri, you got LSU. So what do we need to see from Bama, and this includes the Georgia game, over the next month or so to make you think this team can win a national title based on what you've seen through 3 games?
Oh, we're going to have to make sure our O-line's getting better and better. We got to make sure we're protecting our QB as much as possible. That's what we got to do. Because I remember Kellen DeBoer stressed that we got to protect our QB as much as possible.
Which is hard sometimes when Milroe doesn't like to protect himself sometimes. He still has a bad tendency of drifting back into sacks.
Oh, yeah.
Where it's not on the tackles, it's on him because he just keeps drifting back and holding on to the football. But it's not as bad as it was last year. Even at this point last year when they because he didn't play in the USF game. But Texas, it was horrible. He was horrible with it. And first game was against Middle Tennessee. He did not, it's Middle Tennessee, but he had some tendencies. Not nearly as bad. So we talked about the sack numbers. I still think the secondary needs to be better moving forward. What do you need to see Bama work on during the bye week?
I would like to see that secondary, like you said, work on the passing defense. We got to work plenty on that because if we don't work on that, Carson Beck is going to have us annihilated. And if we don't get annihilated by Carson Beck, we'll get annihilated by Nico Imaliva at Tennessee on the 3rd Saturday in October. And it's a good thing LSU, we don't know what their passing game's looking like. It's nowhere near like last year, but still, though, you don't want to have to hope that other teams don't have a good enough quarterback in some cases to make sure that your secondary is doing all right. You want to make sure you can put a stop to the passing game on defense, good, bad, and ugly.
Yeah, we're going to play some passing attacks here down the road that are going to be pretty dangerous. Tennessee's got a great one. Mizzou's got a pretty good one. LSU's got a good one. OU, I think, has a good one, but I'm not, they're also dealing with a ton of injuries, to be fair to the Sooners. So we'll see how that goes. But, Auburn doesn't, obviously.
Yeah, it's a good thing we're not playing Auburn at Auburn this year.
Yeah, thank God.
Oof.
I saw that they benched Peyton Thorne and only took him a year. But I'm excited for the rest of the season for Alabama. I talked last week because I didn't do week 1. And if I had done week 1, I wouldn't have done last week just because I'm deathly ill. I don't think Alabama's going to win the SEC. I think the schedule is too tough. I think Georgia's got a pretty – I know they go to Ole Miss. They go to Bama. We'll know more in 2 weeks. If Alabama beats Georgia, I think they can. But I didn't predict it in my preseason predictions. That doesn't mean they can't win a national title with the 12-team playoff. I would like to see Bama over the bye week, and it's the same thing. We say this time and time again. I want to see the intermediate stuff be better. Because when you do play these elite teams, when you play Tennessee, when you play Missouri, when you play LSU, and you play Georgia, hitting big plays is good, and you can win. They did beat Georgia last year. That's a good thing. But in order to consistently be winning these games, you can't always be relying on huge chunk plays. You need to be able to consistently convert 3rd and 5s, 3rd and 6s, 3rd and 7s, and keep the chains moving so that you're not relying only on big plays. So I need to see them just keep improving on those intermediate 3rd downs, and Milroe keep improving on the intermediate game. I still don't think he's quite there yet. I think he's better than he was last year, especially early. Let's just all we're just gonna have to wait and see.
Well, and I wanted to go over also what we need to work on, like during the bye week. Because like I know that Kalen DeBoer in week 2, he stressed that the offensive line needed a lot of work, and I know some people were talking about our secondary. What are you thinking, like that we need to work on?
Um, Bye week, typically just getting back down to taking a long, serious look at your film and what learn from those mistakes. I think offensive line needs to work on, the hand placement, keeping the hands in, and communication is always a big issue, and especially it's going to be a big issue this coming next game with the loud. I mean, it's going to be loud, and so you got to, your hand signals. I know they're talking in the head, the helmet and the little green dot, stupid stuff and that kind of stuff. But it's going to be communication. They're going to turn the volume, the speakers out on the practice field, and it's going to be noisy and prepare, for the big situations, and then probably your timing issues with your receivers, tone, kind of work a little bit with regard to that, and get people healthy. If anybody's banged up, give them a couple of extra days off, and that, and then you got to take a look and see, what is Georgia doing? Where is their success? And that's what I'm going to do between now and Georgia game, and I'll come back with something next week when we talk. I'm going to look at Georgia and see what they're doing. Okay. Now I know during the course of the season, they're probably looking a little bit, taking a little bit of peek at Georgia, but now they're going to really, sit down and pay attention. And so that's what I'm going to do. And then look at what you're doing, look at your rotation with your players. Who's doing what in what situation? Can we get a better rotation here in these types of situations? Find out where your success is, and then identifying where where your failures are. And that's what you do, is just and get back to the basics. Practice your fundamentals, tackling, catching, and the big game scenarios. Big game scenarios. What do noise, and what are you going to do in these times? Be prepared for a little bit of everything.
Yeah, I'm just waiting to see what happens because I mean, we're going to be watching a little bit of game film on some of our opponents, like including Tennessee and Oklahoma, where College Game Day is going to be going to town for the first SEC conference game for the Oklahoma Sooners. I'm curious about what Nico Lima-Leva is going to bring out for Tennessee because I mean, so far Tennessee's been dominating everybody.
Yeah, no, but I haven't been able to really sit down and watch because I mean, look at the schedule and that. And so what the scores and what and I look at Ole Miss, and they're running up the stats and the scores and stuff.
No.
But I mean, I don't base any. Now we'll find out a little bit about Tennessee. We'll find out. We're hitting the first real core of the SEC season. So now we'll find out what. Everything else is just a prelude. Now we'll start to figure out, how good a player is this, how, especially these unknowns that haven't played before. We already know about Milrow and some of these guys, Carson Beck, we know about them, but now these other guys that are making some noise, now we'll be able to, really, now the competition begins. So we'll learn a little bit more than what we knew in these first three, preseason games.